In the 1980s, Hollywood released a movie called Children of the Corn. And this movie was based on a Stephen King novel. There were several sequels to it, I think about five of them. And in each of these movies, um, where you see that that people created this master race of children who were supposed to, be better than the previous generation. And what they were supposed to do was they were supposed to be better than the previous generation, and they were genetically engineered to be better in every way. But what happened was the children eventually turned into monsters, and they, turned against everything that their creators sought them to do. And I have to say, life is imitating art right now in the Negro community. Right now, we have a real life generation of children of the corn coming up, and a lot of Negroes in the Negro community just don't see it. Why do I say we have a generation of children of the corn? Because if we look at things, this generation was supposed to be better than the previous generations who grew up in the civil rights era and even in Gen X. They were supposed to be, you know, thoroughly integrated into society. They weren't supposed to have experienced any type of dysfunction. They were supposed to be a solid middle class. But if we look at this generation of children of the corn, they are emotional, violent prone savages. This is what we have right now in the Negro community. This generation is a generation of children of the corn. If we look at incidents like Baltimore, the Baltimore riots, and we look at incidents such as the fights that transpired here in New York at two local McDonald's where gangs of girls had fights in a McDonald's, a fast food restaurant, and were literally gang fighting like a pack of wolves and a pack of crazed savages. We see that we have a real life children of the corn situation. And instead of these children being better than their mothers and fathers and even their grandfathers, they're actually going backwards and becoming worse. I mean, this Negro has regressed, and it is clear to me that this Negro has regressed. And you can just look at any picture of life here in America, and you can see how this Negro has regressed in every way, shape, and form. When we look at him, you know, at these incidents with these violent prone savages, you can pretty much see, nobody has any type of critical thinking skills, nobody has any type of reasoning skills, nobody has any problem solving skills. And again, this is due to the way that many of these Negroes are raised. I mean, they are pretty much, feral. And the reason why I can say that they're feral is because, again, this is the way their mother was raised, this is the way their father was raised. They were raised with no discipline, no self control, and this is the sad state of affairs of things in the Negro community. This is the bitter harvest that that we are reaping from planting these seeds by by black single mothers going along with the feminist movement and going along with white liberal policy, creating this welfare state. What we have now, those are the seeds that were planted back in the 60s and the 70s, and now we're dealing with the bitter harvest, which is these real life Negro children of the corn. And these Negro children of the corn are just wreaking havoc wherever they go. They're getting in, they fight over they fight over anything and fight anyone for any reason. It could be the least little thing. They're just completely out of control. They do things like flash mobs, and they do things like fighting in McDonald's, and a lot of it is just again without rhyme or reason. And the reason why they're doing things without rhyme or reason is because, again, we have destroyed the family with these white liberal policies, and I even go back to further even say these education policies because a lot of these schools they enable this behavior in children. And I'm going to get into that further in the video because I have family members in education, and they have told me how these policies have enabled children to become these ultra emotional, violent prone savages. Now, the home is a major part of creating this generation of Negro children of the corn because the home has completely deteriorated under these policies because the father, who was the authority figure and the man who established structure and order in the home, and he was also God's leader, he has been removed from his position. And in his place, we have single mothers thinking that they could raise children. And now we see over the last two going on three generations, that this was a complete failure because with each generation of fruit that passed, it became each generation of fruit that passed, it became more and more bitter and more sour. I mean, if we look at what we have right now, we've gone from people who had functional families to just a complete chaos. I mean, if you look at this Negro community, it is completely savage right now. If you look at any group of Negro teenagers or Negro young adults, because I'm seeing people in their 20s and in their 30s getting into fist fights. I mean, and what's really dysfunctional about it is you see that the order is completely reversed because we see women acting like men and men acting like women. Like in this recent McDonald's fight that I saw, um, the women were fighting and the men were egging it on and sitting in the back. And when a man, African man, tried to come in and break it up, then these simps came in talking about they wanted to keep the fight, wanted to beat up the man for trying to do what men are supposed to do. Again, a man's natural job is to protect his woman and to protect the women of his community. He does not want to see his woman in the street fighting like a violent prone savage. And he wouldn't want to egg that on. It's just not something a man would do. But only a man reared in a female headed household for the most part and would want us to do this because a man who was raised in a female headed household with feminine traits is going to be passive and sit there and watch a fight go on. A man is not going to let his woman sit there and fight with another woman. He's going to want to protect his woman and protect his community. And this is something I saw in another video where these two savage women were fighting over a parking space. These two silverback females were fighting over a parking space. Again, I saw the order reversed. You saw the man holding the child, the man, in the back, and these two women beating the crap out of each other, or one woman was literally beating the crap out of another woman. And it showed me how masculine the female is these days in the black community and how feminine this man is. I mean, he's not stepping in while his woman is fighting this other woman. He's not stepping in to say, no, I'm not going to let this happen. This is my woman. I want to protect her and I want to protect my family. No, he's setting a model of manhood that shows, how weak this Negro male is. I mean, you're gonna sit there and let your woman fight another woman and do this in front of your children. Here you are holding a baby. Your son is standing right next to you. And what is he learning about manhood from you? He's learning that, you know, in order that the man is weak, that the man is submissive, and that he doesn't take a active role in one, leading his family, and two, protecting his family. But this is the sad state of affairs due to this generation of Negro children of the corn. This is what happens when single mothers raise boys to manhood. They don't become leaders, and the women become leaders, and this is why we have dysfunction and chaos. This is why we have, in this third generation, this generation I call the Negro children of the corn. And these children of the corn, again, they just bring havoc everywhere they go. Um, and this is why we see all these fight videos where people are just fighting in a fast food restaurant, or they're fighting on a bus, or they're just literally just going crazy. I mean, if you go to a public junior high school, there are at least one or two fights a day because of these savages being completely out of control. And I have to say, because I have a family member who works in education, this situation is actually going to get worse because she worked in the first grade with the first graders and she saw things that I'm going to tell you about right now that will disturb you because this next generation of savages is even more feral and more brutal than the previous one because these kids at 6 years old are one, some of them are having psychotic episodes, two, many of them just go on rampages because of these policies that tell you that you cannot discipline any children in the classroom. You can't even suspend them. You can't punish them. There's liberal policies in these public schools literally give these kids a free pass to wreak havoc in a classroom. And what's happening now is that whenever these kids can't learn a lesson, they jump out of their seats, they're tearing stuff up, they're hitting other kids, and there are no consequences to it because of these policies. And what's happened? Because she told me one time, that there was one kid who literally destroyed a classroom. He flipped over tables, he broke about 4 or 5 iPads, and nobody could do anything to him because of this white liberal policy that tells you you can't discipline a child You can't suspend them. You can't take away things from them. And all you can do is coddle them, give them some cookies or give them some time on a computer if they want to act out. And this is really detrimental to our children because when they run into authority figures are not going to give a 14 or 15-year-old kid a pack of cookies or tell him to use his words. When he runs into an authority figure like a police officer and he tells him to get his hands up and he decides he wants to continue acting out, he's going to take out a taser and shoot him with a couple of thousand volts of electricity. And if he's got a weapon, he's just going to shoot him point blank, and that's going to be the end of it. And these policies that are in your public schools these days are very, very dangerous to Negro children and further enable these Negro children to become more children of the corn. Because what they do when this child acts out is that they just take him out of the room or her out of the room. They try to pacify this savage, and they don't, you know, try to help this child deal with their emotions and deal with their anxieties, in a constructive manner. They don't do this. So what they do is they coddle and enable this child, and as this child grows up and goes further up the education hierarchy, in upper grades and even in high school, they become more and more dysfunctional and more out of control. And this is why we have these violent prone savages, walking and stalking the streets these days, because our education policy, if they act out in class, you can't do anything to them. And now it's gotten to the point where here in New York under this de Blasio administration, next year they say there is no suspension at all. I mean, last year there was suspension where they took you to another classroom, and that was your suspension. You spent another week in another classroom, but there are no punishments whatsoever in a public school, and that's dangerous because and then the whole I and the, that's dangerous because again it enables dysfunctional ideas in children. It conditions children to believe that there are no consequences to their actions, and that for every action there is no equal and opposite reaction. And when you get out into the real world, this sets these kids up for a really, really rude awakening again. Because the authority figures, the female authority figures, the white female authority figures in the classroom, enable these behaviors in them, it doesn't prepare them for a world filled with male authority figures who are going to enforce structure and order. And this is why we're going to have another generation of children of the corn, because when you go to a public school and you see these Negroes and the way that they are being conditioned, it's like they're being prepared for the prison system. This is why I can agree with David Carroll on his view on white liberal policy and how they're just setting you up so he can make money off you Negroes. This is what he does because we look at it, these policies do not help children. What it is that we have everything just socially engineered to create, generation after generation of Negro children of the corn who are completely savage, completely feral, completely out of control, and will feed a prison industrial complex for generations to come. I mean, this is it's like a genetically engineered savage. I mean, from what I've been told by my family member that goes on in a public school, how these kids go on rampages, and how they act out whenever they can't do something. They have not been taught, how to navigate their emotions regarding subjects like if you have a hard subject like English or math. Their response is not to, learn how to deal with their emotions and learn how to buckle down and study, because what they learn from these white female teachers is, if you just get up and act out, and then if you're acting out, what happens is somebody takes you out of the classroom, they pacify you with some cookies, or they pacify you with some computer time. You never learn, the resolve and the discipline to continue, persevere and try to overcome the challenges in front of you. You never learn, perseverance and diligence. What happens is all they learn is if I don't want to do something, I act out and someone will come and pacify me. And this is a very dangerous precedent to set in a child as young as 6 years old. What's going to happen with this child again is they're going to grow up thinking that if I don't want to do anything, all I have to do is throw a tantrum, and then people will give me whatever I want. And that doesn't really work. And this is why we have, these bands of kids who are just complete savages running around. They're socialized to believe that, if I want something, I just go ahead and take it, or if I'm frustrated, I just go out and act out, because no one is teaching them, things like discipline and character, and the policies of your public schools and the policies of your home is not teaching them discipline and character. Because again, the parents also give these kids whatever they want, and they never learn, how to build that character and resolve. And again, these are things that a father usually teaches his son or his daughter, so they can go out into the world and become functional adults. And that's not what kids are getting these days. And this is why I say that we have a generation of two generations coming up that are literally Negro children of the corn. Completely, again, completely savage, completely feral. And if we look at their behaviors, this is the bitter harvest that is coming to a black community near you. I would just look at these videos of these females and these males just sitting there fighting like cats and dogs, fighting like completely wild animals. You look at these packs of kids, because there's not even one-on-one people fighting. It's packs of people fighting. It's like a wolf pack. And the wolf pack, what they do is they just circle a person, then gang up on them, and literally beat them until they stop breathing. This is what we're seeing now, because again, this is not human behavior. This is savage behavior, because a group of savages do stuff like this. When I saw in that McDonald's footage, that was savages. What I saw in those Baltimore riots, that was savages. And what I'm seeing, it clearly shows a complete and total breakdown of this black family, and how things have fallen completely apart regarding this black family. We have seen, you know, in these last two generations, the ones that I think were born in the 1990s and the ones born in the 2000s, a complete deterioration of the family, because we have people who are just completely just out of control. And it's just sad. It's just sad to watch, because when you see these Negroes, and they're supposed to be the future, they're supposed to be the ones who are being the best and the brightest of our community. They were supposed to be the ones who were supposed to do better than all the people who came up through affirmative action. They were supposed to have done better than the Gen Xers. They were supposed to have done better. They were supposed to be the ones who were supposed to be able to do well in school. They were supposed to live in a harmonious community. They were supposed to be the successes in the black community. But as we see, they're not. We see that they're actually worse. And instead of them being, prosperous fruit, they have turned into children of the corn, and they're ready to. And it looks like they're getting ready to do worse than their mothers and fathers. And if you look at their behavior, it's just again completely out of control, completely violent, um, and you know, it's just sad to watch. It's sad to watch, you know, what was supposed to be our best and brightest generation falling apart in front of our eyes. And what's even sadder is, your civil rights organizations like your NAACP, your Negro Action Network with Al Sharpton, your Nation of Islam with Louis Farrakhan, and all of these other, civil rights groups. They are not looking at this and saying, you know what, our community is falling completely apart. Our best and brightest kids are pretty much lost, and we are in some serious trouble as it comes to the Negro race. Just completely out of touch, completely clueless, and you know, it's again sad to watch, because it's happening right in front of them, and it's happening on their watch, and they're just sitting there going, everything is fine. They're thinking that we can continue to march and protest and get crumbs from the table, not understanding that your family is completely deteriorated. When you look at the Baltimore riots, it pretty much showed me, how bad things are regarding the black family, and that we are all raising Negro children of the corn, and sadly, it looks like they're getting ready to turn on the black community, um, just like those genetically engineered children of the corn pretty much turned on their creators in the Stephen King novel and in all the movies. And this is the bitter harvest again that is coming to the black community is coming to a black community near you. And people think that, that this all has to do with white supremacy and racism. This is what your pro-black is going to tell you that this is all based on. It's not based on that at all. It's based on a complete on this black woman, siding with these white feminists and siding with white liberal policies. And these liberal policies, for the last two generations, have made things worse in the black community. If we look at, and the whole thing is, we were warned about this by Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, a Democrat, in a report back in the 70s. He said that this would be the end result of single mother households. But when he presented this argument, he was called a racist. He was and said that he was, against black people. But we see now that he was right, and now many of us who are self-aware have to deal with this bitter harvest of totally dysfunctional Negroes who can't even tie a shoelace, who can't even feed themselves. Because this is what my family members told me, about what has happened with these Negro children of the corn, that they can't even use a fork and a knife. Again, completely savage behavior, completely out of control. And you know what? Nobody is taking it seriously. We all think that these Negro children of the corn, you know, are just gonna be okay. It's like, no, this is not okay. This is a complete deterioration of your community, and this is the type of stuff that leads to complete anarchy. This is the type of stuff where I have to agree with David Carroll again when he says, you know what, people are gonna get tired of this Negro, especially these savage, out of control Negroes who come from these dysfunctional single mother households. I mean, people are gonna get tired of these guys committing crimes and trying to find ways to justify it. And this is not going to end very well for the Negro if he does not get himself together, because what's going to happen to him is eventually this type of out of control behavior, like we saw in Baltimore, like we're seeing on streets all over the city, is going to lead to some type of people eventually just getting tired of the Negro. And it's not going to be pretty. I'm just going to say that, because everybody else has gun licenses and stuff, and they have legal justification to deal with this savage, once and for all. People are just going to get tired of him. Every time something goes wrong in his life, he has to go on a rampage and throw a tantrum like a 5-year-old, because again, these are the behaviors that are enabled by your white female teachers and your black single mothers. That just, if he acts out, just give him whatever he wants. If he wants something, just give it to him. They try to pacify this savage instead of teaching him discipline. And again, this is why I say the father has to come back to the home, because the father is the only one who can deal with this, and try to break this savage behavior out of these children, because they're not learning it with this single mother. She said she could rear a boy to manhood. She said she could rear a girl to womanhood. And we clearly see from the behaviors we see out here in this Afro-American Negro community that she has completely failed on both ends. Because if we look at these boys and we look at these girls and we look at the behavior that they're participating in, it's clear that she could not lead a family, because God did not make her to lead a family. He made the man to lead the family. He made the man to be the head of the family. And because the man is not the head of the family in the Negro community, we have nothing but chaos and havoc. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.